Today, Bitcoin surges on the week around optimism for a Bitcoin ETF. Sam Bankman-Fried takes the stand again, this time with the jury present. And former Assistant U.S. Attorney Brendan Quigley reacts to SBF's decision to testify. Welcome to CNBC's Crypto World. I'm Tanea McKeel. Crypto trading flat across the board, but capping a winning week following Bitcoin's big breakthrough above 30K. The coin ended the week up almost 15%, making it its best week since June 23rd, after BlackRock first filed its Bitcoin ETF application, the same thing driving sentiment this week. It ended right at $34,000 by noon Eastern. Ether also notching an 11% gain for the week, its best since April 14th, and ending at around $17.80. Shares of mining stocks posting double-digit gains along with it. While investors are watching closely to see if Bitcoin can turn 32,000 or thereabouts into a new floor after it was stuck between 25K and 30K for most of the year. Chart analysts see higher highs and higher lows in the price if it can clear that level, with some eyeing $40,000 by the end of the year. The week ahead will provide its first testing ground. The Federal Reserve begins its November policy meeting on Tuesday, and investors will be listening closely to Fed Chair Jerome Powell's comments for insight on the path of future rate hikes, which could change the atmosphere in the crypto market. Okay, let's get right to the latest on the trial of Sam Bankman-Fried. We told you yesterday that SBF testified without the jury present, so the judge could decide what from his testimony would be admissible. Bankman-Fried's main argument is that his lawyers advised him on many of the practices at FTX, a claim the judge has been reluctant to allow in court. SBF placed most of the blame on in-house attorneys like Dan Friedberg, saying he was the one who finalized the company's document retention policy and that Sam took the effort to stop the auto-deletion of documents and messages once he knew there was regulatory interest in the company. Bankman-Fried also pointed to in-house lawyers for the loans between Alameda and outside companies, saying he took comfort in knowing legal had signed off on them. Additionally, he said he believes Alameda's ability to take out loans was allowed under the company's terms of service, at least in certain circumstances. Well, after SBF testified yesterday, the judge ruled this morning that the defense can include the testimony about the role the lawyers had in the collapse of the company. Then it was Bankman-Fried's shot to testify before the jury. He started by saying he made mistakes and acknowledging that a lot of people got hurt with the collapse of the crypto exchange. After that, it was all about explaining to the jury those same points he told the judge yesterday, placing the blame on in-house lawyers. Okay, for more on Sam Bankman-Fried's testimony, Crypto World's Jordan Smith spoke to Brendan Quigley, a former assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York and partner at Baker Botts.
Thank you so much for being here. Can I just start by asking for your reaction to this decision to have Sam Bankman-Fried testify in his own defense? How unusual is that decision? And do you think it's a good idea for him to do so, given how much we've heard from him in the past year?
Yeah, I think it is relatively unusual in criminal cases for a defendant to take the stand. It does happen. It is one of the only things in a criminal case where the defendant has an absolute right to do, and his or her lawyer cannot talk a criminal defendant out of not testifying. So this is Sam Bankman-Fried's decision. It's not his lawyers may be aligned with it, but this is his lawyer's decision. It is his decision. It's not only his lawyer's decision. And look, I think there are a number of reasons why somebody in a case like this could choose to testify. One is they feel, that that they've had 3 or 4 people from the company, a number of company insiders testify against him, and he needs to kind of get up there and try to counteract that testimony. I think there's a view that it could potentially help humanize him a little bit to the jury. And I think in a case like this, the defense, obviously they're hoping for a straight acquittal, but, sometimes you're playing for 1 or 2 jurors who you hope will, sympathize with the defendant, even though, they'll probably be instructed by Judge Kaplan that they're not supposed to sympathize with the defendant. You're hoping for a little, just to sway 1 or 2 jurors that, hey, maybe he was acting in good faith here, just to create that reasonable doubt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to get to the hill that the defense has to climb here, given all the other testimony in just a second. But the other thing I'm wondering how unusual it is the judge sent home the jury yesterday to hear from Sam first before the jurors heard from him. What's your reaction to that decision, and how common is that?
So that is pretty uncommon. A judge is a gatekeeper of evidence, right? Of what evidence can come in or out before a court. And the federal rules of evidence do allow a judge to hear testimony, actual testimony from a witness outside the presence of the jury before deciding on whether certain evidence should come in or out. So I think, this is obviously a very kind of sprawling case. I think it was an unusual, but, Judge Kaplan's a very careful judge, very experienced judge, to get a sense of what the contours of Sam Bankman-Fried's testimony would be, particularly on the advice he says he received from his attorneys, and to see whether, how much of that was permissible to put before the jury.
Yeah, the judge did ultimately allow that defense to move forward. But given your experience, how well does that argument that he was just listening to the advice of counsel, how well does that work in a case like this?
Yeah, I think he allowed it to move forward in a little bit pared back form. I think he's allowing it on some issues, but not on others. I guess there are two issues. Number one, is there sufficient evidence in the record for the judge to actually even instruct the jury on it? And then number two, is the jury actually gonna buy that argument? And look, I think one of the challenges for the defense team here is, again, the sprawling nature of the case. Sometimes that defense is easier in a case where you're talking about a single filing with the government, right? I mean, there's a lot of cases a number of years ago, a couple years ago, where the federal false statements charge was raised, or charges about failing to register as a foreign agent or something like that. You're really talking about a single government filing. And I think it's easier for a jury potentially to latch onto that defense in a case like that, where it's just, hey, I took my lawyer's advice about this, whether I had to disclose this discrete issue, or whether this form was required to be filed. Whereas here, again, you're talking about a much more sprawling case, even kind of the pared back indictment. You have different theories: fraud on the investors, fraud on the lenders to Alameda. So I think it's a challenge to get an advice of counsel defense as a complete defense to, all those different theories.
Yeah, I should say that your experience is as a former assistant U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York. I want to ask about your perspective on how the prosecution is doing as well. I mean, they've brought out Caroline Ellison, Nishad Singh, a bunch of people who were really close to Sam Bankman-Fried. How effective was that testimony from them in your eyes, and how well is the prosecution doing in making their case?
Yeah, look, I can't say I've been following the trial transcript, word for word, but it's a typical practice in the Southern District of New York, that to lean kind of, and a lot of prosecutors' offices, to lean kind of heavily on cooperator testimony, as they call it, which is, insiders who, as in the case of those individuals, have pled guilty and agreed to testify at trial. I think it's important in a case like this because, the inner workings of a crypto exchange are not necessarily stuff that is within the kind of bailiwick of the average New Yorker, even if they have some crypto investments or whatever. So it's important to have that insider perspective, to put the case in human terms, and to put the conduct in human terms. And the government is always interested in kind of a morality tale. And I think having the insiders who can break it down into human terms, and turn it into a morality tale is helpful to the government.
That's all for Crypto World this week. We'll be back again on Monday, and we'll see you then.